Welcome to another episode of Tactical Analysis, and in this video we're going to take a look at the Yonex SV Lite 98, and the string in it will be the Prince Tournament Nylon 1.38 as a full bed. So previously I've had it in the crosses as a hybrid. That really is because its durability isn't as good as some of the polyesters, but I figured now's the time to really test it out, see what it's got as a full bed, and hopefully the result is a positive one. We'll see. It is a thicker string for a nylon, so maybe we might be able to get more life out of it. And of course, if it does perform well, then even if the durability is a lot less, I think that's a good trade-off to make. So we'll see how we get on. I'll display a few clips showing the strengths and the weaknesses of the setup, and then we'll go from there. Let's look at some of the stats for the Prince Tournament nylon string, and we'll start off with the dwell time, which came in at 33.6 milliseconds, which is very low, especially when you look at the stiffness rating of 186.9 pounds, which is about mid-range, heading towards lower mid-range. But to have a dwell time that low indicates to me it's probably going to have a lower shot trajectory, or launch angle as it's also known as, which can provide both pros and cons. You've got lower length control as a result of usually the higher shot speed. With this string, the stiffness rating being not too high, hopefully that extra feel will give us that length control to counterbalance the lower dwell time. But we'll see as we get on court. Moving on to the deflection at 32.1 millimeters, that's about mid-range, and I would expect decent height control. We've also got a tension maintenance of 19.7%, which is very high or very low, depending on which way you want to look at it. Nylon strings almost always have better tension maintenance than polyesters, hence the massive difference between this and some of the other polys that we have tested in previous setups. We've also got a energy return of 92.0%, which is very high. Again, you'd expect higher shot speed, lower launch angle, but that's enough about the stats. Let's get into the video and we'll look at some pros first. The first positive I'm going to mention, and it's an important one, it's the increase in length control that I had with this string as a full bed in comparison to previous setups that have been tested. So recently we looked at the Technofiber Razor Code 1.20, and it had decent height control. It had a lot of shot speed and a lot of spin, but that came at the cost of length control. And so in rallies, I found myself falling behind further and further, especially as the conditions got slower. But this is, in comparison, just outstanding. I was able to neutralize rallies regularly. I was able to get on the front foot and not be too concerned when my opponent, who is very skilled, was able to re-neutralize and start the point off again. So I was happy to rally from the back of the court, as I felt the percentages were in my favor, whether right or wrong. That was my impression on court. And so I didn't have the need really to go too hard too early in the rally. I could work the point in a way that I haven't been able to for a long time. So I'm pretty pleased with that, and it deserves a mention, the extra length control we get from this setup. And it is going to come as a surprise to a lot of players, as you know, they say a lower stiffness rating usually results in more power, but I think they're confusing that with a higher launch angle that you get from strings that possess lower stiffness ratings, but the actual shot speed off of the string bed is lower. And so providing that your control over the trajectory is adequate, and it's very important that it is, providing your control is at least adequate, that extra length control is going to result in you being able to rally from the back of the court more effectively, and quite honestly be able to take the ball earlier inside the court, and can also increase the effectiveness of your volleys. Okay, that's enough praising for now. Let's move on to the first negative, and I'm going to mention this for players that use spin as a weapon. I mean, it's a nylon string. There's not much snapback. There's not much movement at all of the mains across the cross strings, and so spin naturally is going to be a little bit lower from this setup. So if you do use spin, especially on grittier, higher bouncing courts, you may find that this string probably isn't to your liking. Although I would say if you could maybe put the mains as the Prince Tournament nylon and keep your regular cross string, that might work, as the nylon can easily move across that polyester. But you'd have to bear in mind the level of string breakage is going to go up a fair bit, so hopefully you string for yourself if you do try that. Another positive of this setup is an interesting one. It's the carry through the court that I get off of my ground stroke. So let me try and explain this in a way that makes sense, hopefully. In previous setups where I've used very powerful strings, I've had to use a steeper angle as I swing up to the ball with my ground strokes to try and add spin. If I was to hit through the ball with a more linear swing path, the ball would go long. And so that steeper upward angle, it does create more spin, but the ball doesn't carry through the court as much as I would like. Whereas with this string, because I've got that extra length control, I can actually use that linear swing, and I found that the ball was carrying on through the court and maintaining a bit more of its speed, if that makes sense, after it hits the surface. That's a good thing for me because especially I use that backhand slice. I use quite a flat forehand stroke, and so if I can get the ball to travel through the surface, I mean, it's brilliant for me. And I'd like to know what my average height clearance over the net was, because I'm pretty sure from what I observed it must have been a little bit lower at least than previous setups, and that didn't come at a cost of a decrease in consistency. In fact, this setup was a lot more consistent, hence why I was able to stay in more rallies than I usually would be able to, and I didn't feel the need to overpress as much as I have in previous setups. And one last negative I'm going to mention, well, I already have, but when you use a full bed of nylon string, it's going to break more often than if you was to use a polyester or a Kevlar string. It's pretty obvious, but it's still worth mentioning. So if you do use this string, then hopefully you string for yourself. And if you don't string for yourself, I really recommend that you start doing so. It's pretty easy to learn. It shouldn't take too long. Me personally, I actually went on a one-day course to learn how to string. So once I had that basic knowledge, it's pretty much easy from there. You can build on that. You don't really need to learn any of the other techniques. I string two-piece everything because it keeps it simple. I still don't know how to do that one-piece around the world garbage, but hey, some people swear by it, and more power to them. So yeah, if you don't string for yourself, just find the time to learn how to do so and get yourself a stringing machine, especially if you're going to follow this channel, because we'll be testing a lot of strings as well as a lot of rackets. And so if you want to reap the benefits of all these experiments, you're probably going to want to string for yourself and save yourself some money in the long run. But yeah, up to you. I'm just telling you what I would do in your situation. So yeah, that brings me to the end of this video. Just to recap, The positives were the increase in length control, especially compared to previous setups that we've been testing. We've got an increase in the amount of carry that the shot maintains off of the surface, thanks to the increase in length control again. So I was able to use a more linear swing angle and get the ball through the court. The negatives were the decrease in spin that you would expect from a full bed of nylon string, and also the increase likelihood that you'll break the strings. You will break a nylon string much more often than a polyester. It's just the way it is. So again, if you do use this as a full bed, I recommend you string for yourself. But yeah, so that's the end of this video. I want to thank everyone for watching. I do appreciate it. If you enjoyed it, it might be worth checking out the other content on this channel and staying tuned for future videos. So hopefully I'll see you all there, and until then, everyone, take care.